fields, human endeavor, as far as data is concerned. Okay. So data science focuses on processing and analyzing data and applying statistical method to visualize relationships and pattern in data. Okay. That's an important concept we've tried to expand in the previous week. Data abounds everywhere. So, but what information can we correlate from those data? That's a key responsibility in data science. Then they take it further into the other thing of building models that will be able to make predictions. That's basically what machine learning do. So now everywhere is awash with AI concepts and all. So, but it's data science is the foundation. The machine learning basically talks about models that are able to make predictions. Okay, they learn from the system. You create models, and those models, when you feed them with new data, they are able to make decisions. Okay, so we looked at artificial intelligence. Basically, I mean, the definition, you can say it's a software, it's a system that is able to mimic human behavior. So what can humans do? Think about decision making. You see things, you decide. You hear things, you decide. Okay, you receive information, then you make decision based on that. So that's a brief idea of how the of artificial intelligence. But machine learning, which talks about the models, are the base, the building block for artificial intelligence. So then drive the, I mean, for data age that we are in, somebody say what we say data, it talks about all this ranging from information to observations that you see around you. They are all data. So there are certain concepts that is common. You hear of data engineering. These are career paths. So the data engineer basically is faced with, they get raw data from the real world. Let's say your weather temperatures, hospital, be the hospital, maybe data concerning patients, your company production data, whatsoever. So basically, what the data science do, the data engineers do, is to collect those raw data, then try to store them or save them in formats that you can always reference them, okay, or store them in SQL databases. That's basically what the data engineering concept is all about. Because you'll be hearing data engineering and you're like, what is data engineering? What is data analytics? What is data science? So that's that. Then there is another role that takes it further, which is the data analysis, okay? So which is also what data scientists do, but there is a difference somewhere. So after the data engineers have collected this data and stored them, the data analyst cleans them. To clean means remove irrelevant or the ones that are, you can call it dead or things that are not relevant in the data. Okay. Then they also organize the data. Let's say things that are missing, they can put it in the structure that you'll be able to gain reasonable insight. Then exploratory data analysis. So afterwards, they do things called visualization, the data analyst. So that's where your typical Excel, you hear things. I mean, going back to Excel rather, these are visuals. By looking at this, you can tell, okay, these are percentage distribution. Okay, this is where you have the maximum user and stuff like that. You can rank, looking at these visuals, you could be able to tell, okay, this is where this is good, this is higher, there is more demand. So this is data visualization. That's basically what data analysts do as well. Then the data science involves beyond just data analytics to using those data to make informed decisions, to build models. So using machine learning models. So the data science is using machine learning models to begin to make predictions. So if there are new data coming in, so you see the difference. Data engineer collects data. The data analyst does what? They clean the data, prepare them. Okay. The data scientist or machine learning goes further to build models that are able to make predictions. Okay. So that's a brief on basically what this is all about. Then in machine learning, so the idea of machine learning is to collect data, use those data you have collected to train your models using some existing algorithms. Then when you have that model already existing, you can feed that model with new information. You can feed it like, okay, I have a model. Then let's say you have when the temperature, let's say it's a sales. Let's say you want to forecast a sale. You can look at, okay, when the weather is these particular values, if we have this temperature, if there are a couple of other variables you could consider. Okay, when this becomes this, what are we expecting? What is this outcome? So you feed it into that model, it will be able to make predictions for you. Okay, then also it can do things that is related to classification for you. Okay, if we have trained this model and whenever it sees something different, it will tell you, okay, this is not part of it. When it sees something that looks alike, I'm trying to just get a very simple definition. It's able to say this belongs to this category, this belongs to the other category. Are we together? So that's basically what the model is able to do for you. So those are typical examples. Then
somebody has his hand.
Yes, a question.
Yes.
Kemi has his hand up. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
please go ahead.
Yeah. Two things. Number one, you talked about supervised and unsupervised in the slide there. Can you just expatiate around that? And then the second thing is when you're looking at the data that you're talking about prediction, does it use trend, historical trend as part of the prediction?
Come again with your question. Sorry.
So there are two questions. First question is, in the presentation, you did mention supervised and unsupervised.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to understand, I mean, what's the difference between those supervised and unsupervised? Then the second question is, when you're talking about predictions, where machine learning are using model to make predictions, does it look at historical trend when it's making predictions?
You can, depending on the type. Okay, let me take one at a time. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take one at a time.
Thank you.
Basically, the concept of supervised. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to yeah. Okay. So in the concept of supervised learning, okay,
Yeah.
you have well-defined labeled data sets. Okay, so you have data that are well labeled. Okay, so these data sets are designed to train or supervise algorithms into classifying data, predicted outcomes correctly. So they are well-defined structured data. Okay, so we can use things that has to do with if I remember correctly, there are two categories of the supervised learning. We have the classification models, okay, where you are actually classifying things that has to do with it's either apples or oranges. Okay, then there is also what we call the regression model. It's another supervised method. It's another supervised learning method that basically use algorithms to understand relationship between dependent and independent variables. So, but basically, the idea of supervised learning is that the data is structured. Okay. So, but for unsupervised learning algorithm, you analyze unlabeled data or what you can call clusters. Okay. Then you look at clustering, where you associate this particular group. As you create the clusters, you are able to make it's like, how do I, they usually call it clustering. Like, it's a data mining techniques where you group on labeled data, okay, based on their similarities. Okay, so that's an aspect of that. But the key difference is these ones are labeled. These are categories. You have the features, you have the labeled column, that the things you actually want to predict. Okay, that's that. But for unsupervised, that you just have random data and you want to say, okay, what category, what are the things we can make from this data? Okay, but in depth, I made a reference. You can find further in depth in this first slide. Okay, there is already an existing there's already a data training course ongoing. you can get more insight on those
Okay.
definitions. So, but here basically we are not definitely trying to explore data science in depth, but how to apply data science techniques using Azure infrastructure. So the things you are able to do on your local, or how you are able to use your to build your model or the complete pipeline, being able to use existing infrastructure to run them. That's also one of the things we look at. Okay. So I think I spoke so much.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay. Where were we? Yes, then the cloud concept. Do we need to? I think our time is really not our friend. How many of us? I think we've already talked about the cloud concept. Is it still new to anyone? So when we hear the cloud, for the sake of those joining us,
If it's just for me, you can ignore this. I'm very conversant with cloud concepts, so
yeah, it's all right. Okay, okay. So let's go to yes. So this was where we started understanding what is Azure machine learning. Okay, it's so we said the typical machine learning pipeline, the things you want to do, you want to collect your data. Okay, you want to use those data, you break those data into two. Basically, you create your test and train data. You have your training data, so that data is broken into two. You use one to train your model. After you've trained that model, you use the other one to validate, to test, or make prediction. When you're satisfied, if it's not done there, it's an iterative process. Okay, afterwards you have your model, and that model is fine. The next thing that organizations do is to what we call deploy that model, to host it, creating an endpoint, an interface where if you feed it with new information, you are able to get a predicted output or things you want to, okay, this, let's make prediction. So that's the whole idea of machine learning. Now, Microsoft provide you with computing resources or cloud services where you can bring your data. We can also host for you. You can bring your code. You can also use existing, if you are not good with coding, for example, you'll still have modules where there are no code deployments. Okay. So somebody can say, I'm not good with programs. Yes, Microsoft can also provide you modules that do not require coding, but you just feed it your data and you're able to make prediction. They also provide you computing resources. Like we said, your computer, some of us use Core i5, Core i7, name all the best of processors. But the best of processors are usually with the cloud providers. You have good computing powers. They provide those resources for you, okay? So they also have they have integrated open source platforms to help you train your models and make deployments. So that's one of the things Azure Machine Learning does for you, okay? So Azure Machine Learning provides a platform for data scientists to train, that's what we said, to deploy. After you have trained, you host them. So deployment is a set of resources that holds sets of resources needed to host that model so that it's able to do inferencing or scoring when you feed it with a new data. Okay, so Microsoft provides you that enabling platform for you to be able to do that. Okay, let's go to so define what you want to do, provide your data, train and validate your model, deploy your model. Okay, then the monitoring, which is what we call MLOps or DevOps with machine learning, if I'm correct. Yeah. Okay, then last week we also looked at what are the tools that you can use in the Azure Machine Learning platform. You can use the Studio interface directly, like we shared here. I think it's this one. How many of us remember this? This is the Azure portal, okay? Then from this Azure portal, you can create the workspace, which we are going to do today, okay? Then afterwards, you are able to train your model. If it's deployment you want to do, if it's storing your data you want to do, whichever one, Microsoft provided those stuff. Then we also have Python SDK, which are your codes that you want to do. You use whichever one, it's available. The command line interface is also available for people who are good with scripting. You also have those resources. Then we also have the ARM template, basically for automation. So we also have those available. So let's go quickly to the first lab where we started last week. So the workspace is a central place where you can work with all the assets or resources to train your models, okay, to train and deploy your models. That's basically what the basic definition was said last week. The workspace, so with that, you are able to manage your jobs, your data assets, your model, your components, then your inference endpoints. Okay, so let's look at how to create the workspace. For those of us that have the subscription, I would like us to join in this. So the reference is this documentation. It's also in the slide. Okay, so we'll try to go along so that we're able to be on the same page. Are we together?
Yes.
Okay. So how many of us are doing the lab? 1, 2, 3. How many of us are doing the lab? Drop me yes in the chat. Let me know how many of us are doing the lab. If you're doing the lab, you just write yes on the chat. Yes, I'm waiting for, okay, 1. I mean, I think I remember 3 people. We said we got our account set up. Yes, I'm waiting. So only one person doing the lab tonight. Wow. Okay, so let's proceed. Let's proceed. So the first thing you do in the Azure portal is to create a resource group. So we said a resource group is like your folder where you keep your existing resources. Okay, are we there? So from the search, you can search for resource group. Okay, you can search for services. You can search for resource group. So you can search for resource group in your Azure portal under resources. Then you simply click on create. So the resource group requires basically 2 things: the name and the region. Those are basics here. Okay, the names. So you have the name, then you choose the region. Now there's something about this. I think it's the cost. So it's always advisable to choose a region that is closest to you. Okay. So this is very important. Data centers that are closest to you. It's always good to deploy your region resources in regions that are closer to you. Like most of us are in the UK, so you can choose UK South. Okay. Simply.
Sorry, just a question. The region there, is it similar to AWS available region here?
Not too conversant with AWS, but
yeah,
yes,
it's the same.
it's the same.
Yes,
Okay.
it is. Yeah.
Available regions. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the same thing. Okay. So you simply create your resource group. Okay. So like we say, it's usually like a folder where every resource you are creating, you just keep it here together. So every resource is provisioned from, do I call it a path? So you have an Azure, you have the cloud, you have your own subscription, then you now have the resource group. Okay. Then we start by creating first the workspace. Okay, so inside this workspace, we said there are different approaches. You can create the resource group. You just simply create your machine learning workspace here. Click on marketplace. You can type Azure Machine Learning. Azure Machine Learning. You click. Sorry. The okay. Dami, did you create the resource group? Hello, Dami.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So you create the resource group. Then you are with me on the workspace, right? Are you with me on the workspace?
So I've not gotten there. I've just created resource group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it done? Okay. So go to your resource group and open the resource. Okay. Are you there? Hello.
Yes. Yes.
So you have your resource group open now. Okay. Inside the resource group, you can click on create a resource. So it takes you to the marketplace. Okay. Then you select Azure Machine Learning. Azure Machine Learning. It opens. It brings all the search results. You can select your Azure Machine Learning. You click on create. You provide the name of your workspace. Okay, so there are things that they are what we call associated resources. They are basically a group of resources that the workspace needs to function effectively. Let me try to let me get to the slide. Let me get to the slide. Okay, let's get to the lab one. So this is on the create page. So just hold on. Let me try to explain this. So every workspace has what we call associated resources. You have storage accounts, which are basically to store your files, your notebooks, let's say Python notebook, your Python script, all those. Then the data that are associated with your job. We have the key vault, which basically manages authentication keys that your workspace uses. Okay, then we have the application insight to monitor your predictive services on the workspace. Then this container registry, there are two things that you need to know about this. It's created when you need to store images. Okay, let's say your Docker files and that you need for your jobs. Then it can be provisioned when you are creating the resource. So for example, if you already have an existing container registry, okay, you can simply select that here. Okay, if you have an existing app inside, you can select them here. Okay, if you have an existing key vault, you can select, like this key vault now is an existing key vault in some other resource group. Okay, then if you have an existing storage account, you can use, because storage account, these resources, they can be used for different technologies. There are a whole lot of groups that are using them. So you might have specific storage account you want to be associated with your workspace. You can simply choose them. Okay, but for the sake of this demo, you can just create them by default. Just simply, or you create the one that will be associated with this workspace directly. So you can just assign a name to your workspace. Okay. Okay.
A question: is there a specific naming convention you will recommend when you are creating those resources, so that if you want to associate it with any future resource group?
I mean, there's no naming convention. It's as suits. Yes, then it's
Walter, let me answer that. Actually, in the cloud space, right? In a typical company structure, this is just training. In terms of global practice, Microsoft recommends a naming convention. I'll share the link with you. Which I know the perspective you are coming in from as a change manager. You enter an organization and they have cloud infrastructure. You cannot determine which department is using what, and all of that. Cost is jumbled up all over the place. Your naming convention will help to isolate your production environment from your dev environment or test environment, or even if you are trying to grant access to vendors within the organization. So actually there are naming conventions, but a lot of engineers, technical people don't tend to follow it. And it's also part of the governance structure that every organization should take when they are trying to go into the cloud. So it's a good question you have asked. I'll look for the link and share with you.
Thank you.
Walter, please go on. Thank you.
Yes, that's what this is where I wanted to. I also have this. This is what I wanted to. I wasn't done in explaining this.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, there's this reference here. So, it's
okay. You have shared it. Thank you.
Yes,
is that
yes,
it?
that's what I wanted to.
Oh, okay.
My perspective is that Microsoft does not restrict you to a naming convention. You can give it a naming convention that can be applicable to your use case or your organization. Some can give it with this a typical example like the one we shared now. You can associate your resource type, your workload, your environment, your region. You can give an instance. Okay, so you are able to define them at your organization level or however you feel, but you have that liberty to define the naming convention that suits you. I don't know if
you can localize it to your organization context the way it's
exactly. So
Okay.
Microsoft does not constrain you. That's what I wanted to explain. We don't constrain you to name it this way, but we recommend naming it in a way that it's applicable to your organization. And like Uncle Ralph said, people organization tend to name resources so that they are associating it with different technologies or use case. Let's say the production environment, they associate those with, or the test environment, they can associate it with a whole lot. But here is the documentation here on naming convention. Okay, so it basically helps you to identify your resources, know the associated workloads and the environment it's associated with and your region. So that's a good one. Okay, it's in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah, you found it. Okay. So for example, you see, take for example, you see this demo now. Let's see the naming convention. Let's to see if I give this naming convention. You see, I named it demo 001. Okay, you see this storage account now. You see it follows the same convention. So I'm able to associate this storage account to this workspace. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So if I name it, let's say Walter Prod environment.
Well, it's prefix your name against all the resources so that there's a logical relationship.
Exactly. You can see. So you see this. So you see this my storage. It goes with the naming. So that's about naming convention. Okay. So okay. So we can create the workspace. Dami, I hope you are not lost. Are you still with me? Hello, Dami, you still there? I think you're following with the, okay, thanks. Okay. So you create the workspace. So we said every resource, every workspace, machine learning has resources that are associated with them. We have the storage account, we have the keyboard, where we explain what these do. Then we have the app inside, okay? Then let's look at this schema, for example. Let's see, so you see the Azure, the cloud, okay, service provider. Then you have your subscription. Inside the subscription, you have your resource group. Then you have your ML service, okay? Then the ML service, things associated with it, we have the storage account, we have the keyboard, we have the app inside, then the container registry, which we already explained what they do. So far, do we have an understanding of what this workspace is now, right?
Yes, for me.
Okay. So inside the workspace, we have different categories of resources, or we can call them menu, as it were. So you have the authoring, the section that contains multiple ways of creating your models. Okay, ways you can create your model. Let's look at the one we have created. For example, you now launch. So this workspace, you launch the studio. It takes you. So you have the authoring, you have the assets, you have the manage. So what do they basically do? So the authoring, this way you ways you can create your models. Then the assets in the studio help you to track your jobs, things related to your job, the data, the job, the logs, the pipeline, the environment that you're using in your job, the specific model, the endpoints that's associated. Then the last talks about the manage section that lets you create and manage computes. Computes are like your virtual machines where you run your jobs. Okay, it also allows you to create and manage a data labeling project. Okay, let's look at the second lab. So I don't know if Dami, were you able to create the workspace? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the screen. Hello, is Dami still with us? Is Dami
She's on
still?
mute. She's there, but on mute.
Yeah, just to be sure that someone is following, because if I run the slides, it's easier for me. But again, the question is if we have a good hands-on. Okay, but because of our time, we can just quickly proceed. Then maybe some other times we can. But I would really like, and it will really be fine if we're able to do this lab together and know where we are as a group. So I don't just comment, tell stories and all. Okay, then we have what is called the computes. The computes are basically environment where you run your training script or host your service deployment. We'll explain that. There are basically it can include your computer. Your local computer can be also a compute resource where you can run your code as well. You can do all that. Then you can do local deployment and all. Then we have the ones that are managed by Microsoft or Azure. Okay, we call them the Azure Managed Computes, where you can we have the compute instances, the compute clusters. Okay, these are managed by Microsoft. What are these basically? They are just basically a computer, like I explained last week, or what we call virtual machines that are hosted by Azure. They provide you all the tools, all the resources you need to build your model and to automate your processes. That's just basically what it is. The one of them common is the compute instance, which basically has one node. Okay, so basically often for test, for dev environment. Okay, but for production environment where people deploy, heavy workload, we often recommend using the compute cluster that has more. So you can choose the number of node, which depending on your computing need. Okay, so the compute instance is similar to a VM in the cloud. That's just basically what you can what we call that. So let's see how we can quickly create a compute. So inside your, are we there? Hello?
Following.
Yes, we're here. We're here. We're following.
Following.
Yes. So inside these, your workspace, your studio, you can go to the compute. You can simply create a compute resource here, for example, and give it a name. Okay.
Sorry, a question.
Yes.
Within your workspace, you have the author, the access, the manage. Where exactly are you creating from those sections? Where are you creating the compute resource from? From which section?
From the studio.
So
It's
where
under the, from the studio. If I do I get your question correctly?
yeah, so we have the manage. So it's your studio
Yes.
within the manage section or where?
Yes, from the manage.
Okay.
And I think I
Okay.
explained to us what that section basically is. Yes. That creates and manages your computes. Okay, that's where we yes. So it's from the manage. Okay. So you have this. So you simply go to the create, give it a name. So computes are associated with workspaces. Okay. So you have to have your workspace, then you create your compute. Okay. So you can give it a name. So whichever naming convention you prefer, that suits you. Then this also talks about the computing power of those resources, which has a direct relationship with the cost. Can we see? So this is about cheaper. So, but there are different categories of computes. Okay, so depending on your need and use case. Okay, so these are not necessary for now. Then we have what is the idle time. This I think this is important for us. At the time, if the compute is not used, it should shut down to avoid incurring costs. So this is important first. There are network settings, but we're not doing that for now. Okay. So you can create the compute, and when the compute is done, you can begin to let me go to an existing one that is done, for example. So I thought we would have proceeded for that, but I think we went a step backwards there. But let me cancel this. It's gone quite a long way, but I thought we would have used it. Okay, so for example, we have a compute already provisioned. Okay.
Sorry, when you provision your compute, does it start charging you immediately? Or
does it what?
Do you start incurring costs once you provision? Because I know there's cost component, right? Like you show in that.
Yes, there are things you incur cost, but the costs are associated with I think about 2 or 3. There's the load balancer that is associated with that. Then is what is called the computing hour, that's associated. Okay. Then you also have storage. Okay. So those are areas that so if you are not being charged for a computing hour, for example, you can be charged for the storage account where you have the files stored. The files. So that's something. So whenever you are not using, it's advisable, but the greater cost is associated with the compute hours. Okay, that's why it's advisable to stop the compute when you are not using. Yeah. Okay, I think we have one creating. We start this one. Okay, let's see if we have any other thing. Any other questions so far? Thank you very much. I think I really appreciate the engagement from what's the name of the brother again? Bro, Kemi, I wish you have much engagement so that I could know that people are following, you know. Because it's easier for me to come and talk and straight up, but again, when we engage, it's better. Okay. Okay. So we have the compute. I don't know if it's done provisioning. Let's quickly see that. Let's see our compute. It's done provisioning. Okay, so we have our compute here already. Okay. So this compute, we said it's like your computer somewhere is like a VM in the cloud. Okay, you can have Python notebook associated. You can connect your IDE, Visual Studio Desktop, for example, to it, which is the one as Microsoft have. Then we also have the notebook. You have your CLI, which is like the terminal. Okay, for those that are scripting. Okay, so this is the compute instance. So let's see this lab number 3. Number 3, let's see how we can create. Are we, Uncle Rab, do we still have some time? It's 9.
Yeah, because we started, let's some extra 15 minutes if that's okay with you.
No, that's fine with me. I'm
okay.
Just looking for those that may have other things.
Yeah, I think it's fine. You can continue.
Okay, so let's try to see one of the things we can wish, but this section would be good if there were people doing it along. If there are people doing it along, it will be fine. So it's not about me. So, but let's see. So when you now have your computer instance, you can do a whole lot of things with it. So one of them, you can create your resource inside that compute. All the things you have done from the UI, are we together? We created the resource group, we created the workspace, we created, name them. All the things you did from the studio, you can do them using the computer instance, using your code. Okay, so that's one of the things that's this lab wants to do. Let's see how we can use to create another workspace. Okay, so let's just quickly do that and we can call it a day here. So now we have this compute. So let's open this notebook, for example.
So what you are doing there is you are trying to associate a notebook to that compute instance, right? Is that correct?
Hello? It's breaking. I can't hear you.
What you are trying to do now, you are trying to associate notebook.
It's breaking.
Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you now. I can hear you.
So what you're trying to do, if I understand correctly, is you are trying to associate a resource to your compute instance, and the resource in this case is the notebook. Is that correct?
No. No. What we want to do now, you can, like we said, you can use the computing instance to your resources, everything you want to do. You use this VM, for example, to train your models. Okay, you can use it to make deployments. You can use it to do scoring. So this is like an environment. It's also, you can, like those of you that are used to Visual Studio Code, I don't know if you do. So it's also an ID that you can use to issue your command, make all the interaction, do all the trainings you want to do, create the model. So everything in the typical pipeline you can do, from data processing to training your models to validation to inferencing to creating an endpoint to inferencing. You can do all of them from. We created the resource group. We created the resource group using the UI. Am I correct? we created the workspace using the UI. Did you
Yes.
remember the? Okay.
I remember that.
Exactly. We created it using the. Now you can also provision it from this CI, this computer instance. That's what I want to also do. So that it's just an example of one of the things you can do. But everything, most of the things you can do with this, with the studio. Okay. Let's say I want to create. Let's go back to that workspace, for example. The source group right now. So you have this. Where's the one we created? That show this one here. So you remember when you want to create, you come here, you click on create, markets, you type Azure, okay? All these things you did here, you can also do them from the UI if you have an existing UI. So let's quickly do that repro. Yes, let's quickly do that repro and see. And to do that repro, let's say we can, okay, let's do one thing. Let's create two scripts. So to create a script, so this is my part. I can come here and let me create new file. Okay. Second. Create new file. I can call this file create workspace. Okay. Create workspace. I will say I want to create another workspace. Just an example. One thing you can do with a workspace. Okay. Now, for those of us that are new joiners, like I usually say, you don't of Python codes. Some of us are once we hear so I go do coding programming. No, I know Fito. Now all the codes or name whatever you need, they are all available in Azure.
Okay, I thought this from my
we
hand,
lost you there.
you were
The
breaking
last
now.
statement.
No, I think
Network?
this signal is breaking up.
Can you yeah, just repeat the last statement. We lost you there.
Okay, can we hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, so I said some people, especially for those making transition, they're often worried about the code. Oh, how do I code? I don't know how to code. I don't like to code. Just to encourage you, the scripts you need are already available. Okay, all you need to do is just to copy them and use them. Then with time, you begin to understand them. Okay, so one of the programming language often used in data science machine learning is Python programming. You don't need to cram them. You don't need to memorize them. You just simply need to understand what they are doing. We already have repositories where those codes exist. They also exist in our documentation. Okay, so you don't need to bother yourself. Are we together? So I went to someone else. He said, hey, this code, I go take understand which one they do. You mean I go learn them? I said, no, these are all in public domain. You can see them here, right? These are public resource. You don't need to memorize. All you need to do is to understand what they are doing. For example, you see a code, he said, enter your subscription detail. It tells you, get the handle. Just don't worry. Just understand what they do. With time, you'll get a hang on them. Okay? Are we together? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So let's go. So don't bother. Most times, I go program. Oh, no, I don't like go programming. They say, please program in hand. Just don't bother yourself. The codes are available. All you need to do is to just know where to get them. Okay. So for the sake of learning, we have sample codes here, for example. Let me open them in two places so we can understand what I'm saying. So that it's easier for those of us that will revisit this later. Let me duplicate this stuff. Let me duplicate this. Okay, so inside the computer instance, you have a sample repository here. Okay, this sample repository, we also have the GitHub It's also in the GitHub, okay, which is the online repository. Some of us already know. Virtually everything you can do in Azure Machine Learning, we already have existing samples on them. So all you need to do, you don't need to cram them. You just need to, whenever you need to do something, you just go get the code and use that, but know what that code is in. So for example, we said we want to create a workspace, right? So we have a repository, for example, here. We can go to, let's see where we can get this, for example. So, but one thing for the sake of, you cannot use this sample here. So one of the things you can do in this sample for recording, for those that will watch this later, you need to clone it first. For you to be able to clone it, this one exists in Azure, some remote blob store. That's where this one exists. You cannot use it on your own compute resource. What you need to do is to clone it. You have to clone it. I have to clone it to my own directory to be able to run codes there. You know, let's say I come here, I have to clone to Naimeka if I want to run that. Okay, let's see. I hope this is fast as possible. So when you now want to build your resource or provision your own custom, train your own model or make deployment, all you need to do is to simply go through the sample repository, okay, get the codes or mirror or see what's been done, run the samples, then see how it was used to create all the resource you can create in Azure. When you've seen how it was done, you can use that to build yours. Okay, that's just basically how it is. So you don't need to be scared about the trying to memorize code or how do I go about that. So the codes are already there. Let this oops, can you just be fast? 1 second. So this is, don't worry, we're watching this to see if it's done. I'll get back. Let's just wait for that resource to be complete. Okay, so if, for example, I want to create my workspace, okay? If I want to create my workspace from that sample, remember we did it in the UI before. Now I want to create it from using my compute instance, okay? So the first thing you need to do is to import, let's say, your required library. Remember, we have a script we have created before, okay? Let's say, you can call this create an ML Azure ML workspace. Okay, create an Azure ML workspace. So this tells you what this is doing. Simply import. Okay, yeah, this is done. Okay, so you can now run it here. You see it's already here, but let's proceed with what we have here. Okay, so here's our script. Let's go to where we are. So here's where we are. So the first thing here is to create your ML. You import your libraries. Okay, then you run that. Then you also have the next. It explains what they are doing. So you enter your subscription details. So to get the subscription detail, we need the resource group. We said, remember, when you want to provision a resource, we said resource are always provisioned from assigned from the associated with subscription, then resource group. Okay, so if I'm creating an Azure ML workspace, I have to associate it with a subscription, and I also have to associate with a resource group. Okay, so basically this is what we did. So to get your subscription ID, you can go to this place. For example, this is an example for me. The same thing, you can go here. You just simply copy your subscription ID. You can put it here. Then the resource group where you want it to be, okay? The resource group where you want this computing instance you are creating to be, okay? Let's say I want it to be in this same one where I am. So I can put it here. Okay. Okay. Then the next thing we do here is
sorry, a question for me. The
just tell me.
subscription ID, is that what you created in your key vault? Or the Azure storage? I'm trying to understand at what stage was that ID created that you now use there?
No. You don't create subscription. The subscription ID is associated with your account.
Okay.
Yes, it's associated with your Azure. So, like I said in this, so if you create an account in Azure, for example, where is the slide? So if you create an account with Azure, a subscription ID is given to you. Okay. Yes. The subscription ID. Use it for your resource. Yeah. So what you then can create that your resource group as it were, but you have to associate to your subscription.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. You're welcome. So let's now get the handle. Let's now connect to that subscription. That's what we do next. So what we do next, we connect to that subscription. That's basically what this line of code is. Then the next thing we do is to create our workspace. So to create a workspace, you remember, right? We say you can create your workspace automatically. If you remember when we're creating in the studio, are we together? When you want to create, said Azure Machine. So when we want to create, so you see, when we want to create your workspace, remember, this is the studio. This is what we are doing with the computer instance. So this is exactly what we are doing. You remember, you have a subscription. How many of us remember this? Yeah. Exactly. So you have this subscription. This is the resource group where you want it associated with. Then you now provide the name of the workspace. Okay. Then we said you can, if I provide a name, workspace 2. Okay. Storage is associated with. So that's basically what we're doing. I'm just giving an example of one of the things you can do with a computer instance.
Instead of manually creating, you are using your computer instance to provision it. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Python.
And using Python.
Using Python.
So this code you are seeing is Python code.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. If in one of our, I think on the slide, we said the tools that are applicable in technologies. We have the studio, we have the Python engine. Okay? So this is what we're using. Okay. Yes, we can also do that with CLI. We also have the ARM template. Okay. So, but for the purpose of this course, we'll just stick to this for now. Okay. So you can now copy this. Remember, I said you don't need to cram them. You just need to know what they do for you. Okay. So, okay. So here now is where we are creating our unique workspace. Okay. So, but let's not associate all this stuff with that. Let's not associate this. Let's just give it a simple name. Workspace using CI. Let's just name it that. Okay. Let's just give it this basic name, using workspace using CI. Okay. So you can, we are, let's use UK South. You can change this. Okay. Basic sample. This example shows how to create a basic workspace using CI. Okay. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so you see deployment begin. This is the ARM template for automation. Now let's go to that resource group. Remember, we want it created in this resource group. Okay, so let's go to this ML, this one. Let's see if we find this one. It's coming. Just give it a while. You see, it has started provisioning the resources that will be associated with it. It has created its own keywords. Remember, we call it machine learning workspace. Remember? Yeah. See? So when it's, you see, it's done creating the storage account. It's done creating. Yeah, so it's done. So if you go to that workspace where you want it created, you see, can you see?
Okay.
So this works created using CI. So you can use that, but I mean, this is just the least thing it can do. This actually, so this is where you actually do your training, run your scripts, all the deployment. You can use that, for example. Okay. So that's, I think we can stop here with this for today. Then subsequent, but I would be glad to have some consistency from us. And those of us that are still reviewing, you can go through the slides, okay? Then get your resources ready so that in subsequent meetings we're able to do the labs together. Today I was actually thinking we would have gone to making deployments to train our first model. That's actually what I had prepared today, but we're not able to get that. But I want everyone to be prepared, get your subscription and resources ready so we can do that together. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. And I wish you a beautiful week ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Walter, thank you. In fact, I'm getting my feet wet with machine learning now. Thank you.
Just gone for a taser.
Bro, can you do you have any
I've
questions?
just gone for a taser, right? Because, like I said, I've
Okay.
just come to. I've been seeing machine learning. I have a theoretical view of what it is all about, but I just wanted to come in and see what exactly is it. How does you go about it, and which is really good. So I'm going to see how much time I can invest in coming. Like I said, I'm not the target audience and I don't want to derail the class. So